Pray for Our Nation. This is through the Billy Graham Evangelistic Association 30-day prayer guide for America. And it is things that we can pray for, specific particular things to pray for. And you can get direct update. For example, the second page here is 30-day prayer guide for America. Day 1, pray for God to open hearts all across our nation. And it provides a verse. And day 2 is another topic with a verse. And each day is particular things. And she encouraged us to either, this is a resource and this would be a good guide. I don't know about you, but I appreciate prayer. And I think our nation needs prayer at this time. And she encouraged us to go to the Billy Graham Evangelistic Association website. And they can, if you sign up for the Pray for Our Nation, they will send you daily things for 30 days. It's not, we're going to start here and end here. It's just on your own 30-day, on your own time. So if you'd like to participate, you can do that.
Dan, in reference to that website, I saw a thing just a few days ago that also on that website would be a Franklin Graham update on MacArthur's situation out in California.
Okay.
And he asked for prayer for that and
For
give
sure.
people an update. So.
I saw on Facebook this morning about Franklin Graham. He invited Christians to come to Washington, D.C. I forget when it is, coming up maybe October, I think.
September, I think it is.
September, for a rally at the nation's capital, to pray for our capital, that kind of thing. So September 9th. So anyway, check out those websites. You can Billy Graham, Franklin Graham's outfit. There's a lot of positive things in that area. Any other little stuff? Little housekeeping things? Okay. Turn your Bibles to John chapter 10, if you would, please. John chapter 10. All right, just to recap and review, we are completing the unit on Jesus the Teacher. Today we're going to focus on John chapter 10 regarding the Good Shepherd. And we've gone through many others, as you can read there. Next unit, it's a 4-session unit. Where we're going to focus on Jesus casting out demons and feeds a multitude and walks on water and the transfiguration. All right, so that's the 4-session unit. We're technically a week behind the pace of the others. So, I took liberty, what was it, a couple weeks ago or so? I read John MacArthur's, the elders, including John MacArthur's, Grace Community Church, not in Goshen, Indiana, but over in California. And their statement regarding that they will continue to meet on Sundays, irregardless of the dictates, decrees of the governor of California. By the way, just a little prayer about that. Since then, the government has promised to cut electricity and water to buildings that meet when they are not supposed to meet, according to their decrees. So, yeah, and substantial fines. So, we'll see how it works. But knowing John MacArthur, he will meet if they can open the doors, and irregardless of water or electricity, they will meet. So, the battle, we may not go to the battle class, the spiritual battle. The battle's coming to us. So, David.
I heard said this COVID is our Goliath today.
Yeah.
And then the Israeli soldiers stayed in their tents.
Yep.
And it's kind of like what we're doing, you know, we're all staying in our tents, we're being dictated to by the government.
Yeah.
And we're just kind of hunkering down and not, I thought that was kind of an interesting,
Yeah, it's an interesting parallel.
yeah.
Well, today, class, this is a terrific lesson, and as you know, I mentioned more than once, I'm the king of rabbit trails, right? So I really try to be good to stick to the lesson. But you know, when you do you enjoy a stock lesson, or do you enjoy cool epiphanies that, you know, in your own personal study? Do things jump off the page to you and you just, wow, I never knew that? Or when you put things together, you didn't know that it was related? I love that. Yes?
Yes.
Right?
Yes, right.
Well, I'm going to fight that, actually, to be honest with you, to actually do the lesson. But I'm going to mention something to you that I think you should dig in and enjoy on your own. Not that you haven't already. All right, let's get into this. We're going to read John chapter 10. The key verses here in the first section. Jesus is the gate that leads to abundant life, right? Now, I will say that I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed. I'm not the smartest student in the class. And not only am I not, but the Pharisees clearly were not, right? John chapter 10 is a continuation, just so you know, of John chapter 9. But I'm going to read, well, here, let me read verses 1 through 10 here. Truly, truly, I say to you, this is John chapter 10, verse 1. Truly, truly, I say to you, he who does not enter the sheepfold by the door, but climbs in by another way, that man is a thief and robber. Pretty self-explanatory, right? When you're walking through your house in the middle of the night and you see a guy half in your window, you're like, hey, how you doing? You don't say, hey, how you doing? You're like, hey, dog, get out of here, right? Yeah. But he who enters by the door is the shepherd of the sheep. To him, the gatekeeper opens. You ever seen shots of New York City in the plaza, or these, you know, big high-rise buildings? These guys in coats out front, and they're looking all sharp, right? Those are the gatekeepers of the buildings, are they not? And the people that go in are known by the gatekeeper, right? They say, hi, Mr. and Mrs. whoever. The sheep hear his voice, and he calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. Verse 4. When he has brought out all his own, he goes before them, and the sheep follow him, for they know his voice. A stranger they will not follow, but they will flee from him, for they do not know the voice of strangers. This figure of speech Jesus used with them, but they did not understand what he was saying to them. Verse 7. So Jesus again said to them, truly, truly, I say to you, I am the door of the sheep. All who come before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep did not listen to them. I am the door. If anyone enters by me, he will be saved and will go in and out and find pasture. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I came that they may have life, and have life more abundantly. It's an amazing passage of Scripture. But chapter 9, if you remember here, there is a transition of influence and power here. There was a fellow that was born blind. Chapter 9, verse 1, as he passed by, he saw a man born blind from what? Or born blind? Blind from birth. Right? So, Jesus heals him, and if you transition down to verse 13, spit and mud on his eyes, and he washed in the pool of Siloam, and he did so, and he received his sight. Verse 13. And on the Sabbath. They brought to the Pharisees the man who had formerly been blind. Now you would think that they'd be happy about this, right? A miracle had occurred. Now it was a Sabbath day when Jesus made the mud and opened his eyes. So the Pharisees again asked him how he had received his sight. Now, the process of healing occurred before he received the sight. Right? Did he see, did the blind man see the process of creating the mud and putting it on his eyes? No. He only saw when he did what, class?
Washed off the mud.
And that was what? Obedience. That's it. It was after he obeyed, after the process was completed, he received sight. I.e., what? New life. Right? You think his life was changed?
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't the same by any stretch of imagination. So the Pharisee, and he said this, verse 14. Now it was the Sabbath day when Jesus made the mud and blind. So the Pharisees again asked him how he had received the sight. And he said to them, he put mud on my eyes and I washed and I see. I don't know anything other than that. Some of the Pharisees says this man is not from God, but he does not keep the Sabbath. They're hung up on the day in which the miracle occurred. But others said, how can a man who is a sinner do such signs? There was division among them. And the Jews did not believe. And his parents brought in and interrogated. His parents, verse 22, said these things. Well, here, let me back up to verse 20. His parents answered, we know that this is our son and that he was born blind. But how he now sees, we do not know, nor do we know who opened his eyes. Ask him. He's of age. He will speak for him. Why? Because they didn't want to fly the flag. Right? They didn't want to put on the bumper sticker. Right? I'm putting it in our terms. Right? It's true. Ladisa calls him what, Mrs. Ellis? You just accused me of that this morning. What was that phrase? No! No, that's not what you said. Silent majority.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Wow, he called a weenie in class. Wow. So his parents said these things because they feared the Jews, for the Jews had already agreed that if anyone should confess Jesus to be Christ, he was to be put out of the synagogue. And the synagogue was the hub. If you were not involved in the synagogue, you were nothing. Back to chapter 10, please. Verse 7 here. Truly, truly, I say to you, I am the door of the sheep. All who come before me are thieves. I've got to get going here. Jesus is not only revealing, now what he is really trying to do, folks, is this. You know, when we are if you were at my house, which many of you were, the tree right by the garage is absolutely massive. Now, when you're under the tree, you don't really appreciate how large the tree is. Have you been, who in this class has been to see the redwoods or the sequoias or something like that? Now, when you're standing at the foot of the tree, you recognize that's a big tree. But when you're standing a ways off and look at the tree, you have a better understanding of how large that tree is. Right? Sometimes you are so involved in the day-to-day and so involved in things and the processes and the culture, you do not understand how you are affected by those that are in charge of you. For example, here, the Pharisees are in the process of losing their grip on the Jews. And they were not going to let anyone out of their fingers, out of their control. Period. Jesus is not only revealing to the people parts of who he is, right? And we're going to go through this. I'm going to show you a little chart here that really blew my mind, and I thought, man, that's a series. But also, he's revealing who their religious establishment was. Christ reveals, in part, two things of who he is. And this is the I ams of Scripture. Now, I did a little digging, and this is the rabbit trail that I cannot go down. But there are 14 I ams of Scripture. We are going to look at number 6 and number 7, I believe. Let's see. 6 and 7. The door and the good shepherd. 12 of the 14 are located in John. The other 2 are in Revelation. But Christ is revealing to us characteristics of who he is, his deity, so to speak. He revealed to us in John chapter 4 that he is the Messiah, the bread of life in 6, that he is from above. He's not one of us, he's from above. He's the eternal one, he has always been. And he's the light of the world in John chapter 8. Here, he highlights 2 other things. He's the door, and he's the good shepherd. Now, the connotations of the door is, A, in order to get to you, they got to go through me. I'm going to protect you.
Just back to the Pharisees, on one other time, Jesus said, if your ox falls into a pit on the Sabbath,
Yeah.
you go and get him. So Jesus helped to set them straight too.
Yeah. They're more interested in the rules and regulations and preserving power than following the God of the Old Testament and the New Testament. Yes? And the Good Shepherd. And we're going to see some really cool things here. But I wanted to show this to you because I've often wanted to study through the life. I've studied through the life of Christ. I've not taught it specifically, but the characteristics of Christ in these things are, I think, very, very interesting. So I just show those to you. I got rapid trail. I almost changed my lesson, but I'm like, no, I really got to go back to it. So, all right. So let's focus on the first one. Jesus is the gate that leads to abundant life. Class, let me ask you something. And I'll tell you a quick story. I know of a person, and I got to be careful because this is recorded, so I can't say things that I normally could. I know of a person. And by the way, you do too. Regarding Jesus is the only name and way to heaven. I've heard many times, not only in Christian circles, but in news circles. I'll give you an example. Allah is another name for God. Right? If you pray to Allah,
No way.
it's the same thing. This is the information presented to us. I'm not saying that that is correct. I'm just saying that this is a viewpoint. Okay. Do you believe that?
Well, I used to think that Allah was just another name for the God we serve, but that's not a true statement. The Allah that the Muslims pray to has many characteristics that are very different than the God we know.
Yep.
Our God is a loving, forgiving God, a merciful God. The Allah they pray to is not a loving, merciful, and forgiving God. He's quite the opposite.
Correct. I find it super fascinating, the ignorance of people. There are groups in our society today that live, breathe, eat, and live a life in the United States. And this particular group of people that I'm thinking of, if they were located and they are decrying the rights and abuses of this open and free country. And they are suggesting that other countries have a better system and way of living, like Muslims. Now, if they were to open their mouth and reveal their lifestyle, which they shove down our throats, they would be summarily murdered in the streets of the countries that they would like to, that they hold up as terrific. They absolutely have no clue at all.
Why don't they emigrate abroad if they don't like it?
I think that's a fantastic idea.
Go to Samoa.
If we even bought them a round trip ticket, they would never come back.
Give them a one-way ticket.
But the fact is, they are misled and they need the love of Christ. Right?
Yes.
But class, it says, and let me read some verses here. Just to help you understand that Jesus is the only way and the only name, right? John 14:6, I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. Nobody. And this jumps off the page from from the sheepfold, the door, and the sheep in there, right? By the way, the sheep in there is what? Specifically, Christ is talking to who here? I mean, who is he chatting with? Well,
Pharisees.
well, yes, but who are the sheep in the sheepfold? In verses 1 through 6. Let me further define my question. Jew or Gentile?
Jew.
Yes, Jew. Okay? He's talking about Jews here. Now, the good part's coming up for us. Okay? John chapter 10, verse 9. I am the door. If anyone enters by me, he will be what, class? Saved. Acts 4:12. And there is salvation in no one else. There is no other possibility of being saved and no other person, deity, that you can be saved. For there is no other name under heaven given among men by which we must be saved. That's it. Those are the only option. There is one option. That's it. So, Jesus is trying to contrast his way versus their way. Okay? Now, class, let me ask you something. There are times where I think, have you ever heard of the term goody two-shoes? That's a real highly technical term. Right? And people think that when you're the goody two-shoe, you have no fun. Okay? Class, did we have fun yesterday?
Yes, we did.
Yeah. It was a good time, wasn't it? The lie that the devil and his followers dictate is that the only way to have fun is to go our way, not God's way. And he's trying to contrast specifically here with the Pharisees that their way is not the good way. And the illegitimate way does what, class? Let's read this. I am the door. If anyone, back up to verse 7 here. Truly, truly, I say to you, I am the door of the sheep. All who come before me are what, class? Thieves and robbers. But the sheep do not listen to them. I am the door. If anyone enters by me, he will be saved and will go in and out and find pasture. The thief comes only to do what, class? Now, that kind of covers it, doesn't it? You talk about a Debbie Downer. When the outcome of your own choices, if you go your way and not God's way, you will be stolen from, you'll either be killed, and you definitely will be destroyed. David.
I got a little footnote here in my Bible that they're equating thieves and robbers to false messiahs and false teachers.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Anytime you think of thieves and robbers, you're thinking of thieves and robbers, as far as like
No.
steal.
In this case, it's spiritual theft.
Steal your soul.
Yeah. Absolutely. So the illegitimate way leads to stealing, killing, and destroying. And this is people's spiritual lives and their physical lives too. But specifically, we're talking about that. We have an online guest. So, class, let me ask you, what are some illegitimate ways or paths people follow that replaces God's ways? What are some illegitimate ways or paths that people follow that are not God's ways?
Good works.
Okay, good works. Yeah. They try to earn their way to heaven. Yeah. What else?
Atheism, humanism.
Yeah. What else? Those are all good ways. I know, look, you don't have to necessarily be young, but for example, yesterday we all had a good time, right? You know, I think one of the lies of the devil is, man, you can only have a good time if you what?
Drink,
Party.
Party.
Misbehaving.
Go out and get drunk. Right?
You want to go around once in this life, you got to reach for all that best food you can get.
That's right. Right? The legitimate way. You have a life and have it more abundantly. Now, this is the benefit of doing it God's way. Let's read it again here. This is in verse 10. I came, and this is the goal here. If you really think about it, I came that they may have life and have it what? More restrictively. Oh, I can't do this. Sometimes people think of religion. It's really a relationship. It's not religion. I don't really like using that term. But our relationship with the Lord, if we have a flourishing relationship with the Lord, it's a bunch of regulations and do's and don'ts. Right?
No.
Well, that's what some people think. No, the fact is that if you follow the Lord and you're trying to cast off the old man, kind of like what Pastor was talking about today, that he just touched on, it is to have a life and to have it abundantly. If you want to have a happy, full, fruitful life, do it the Lord's way. That's what it says. And if you do it, you will have a beautiful life and you have it abundantly. That's kind of the life I want, right? Next one. Jesus is the good shepherd. So first off, he's the door. Secondly, he's the good shepherd. Verses 11 through 13. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. He who is a hired hand and not a shepherd, who does not own the sheep, sees the wolf coming and leaves the sheep and flees, and the wolf snatches them and scatters them. He flees because he is a hired hand and cares nothing for the sheep. Anyone ever serve as a law enforcement officer in this class? Anyone ever serve as a, how do I say that, rent-a-cop? Right? I don't know how you say that. Security guard. There you go, sorry. That's a better term, security guard.
I prefer that.
But you know, the fact of the matter is this. If someone were to break in your house, you would defend your house, right? If you're visiting a mall or a public place, and someone starts creating a bunch of havoc, you don't own the mall, or you don't own the building you're in, what's your main goal? Get out of there, right? Why? It's not yours. You're trying to save yourself, right? That's exactly what they're talking about here. The good shepherd, though, if you own that property, and those people in there are yours. If someone breaks into my house, I'm going to protect my family. I did not invite you in. You made the mistake of walking through the door or breaking through a window, something. You'll have an unfortunate demise. And I don't say that boastfully, because that's a terrible thing. But the good shepherd is willing to give his life for the sheep. I appreciate our shepherd. You know, our shepherds, but specifically Pastor Ray. Obviously, Pastor Ray needs our prayer. Yeah.
In defense of the rent-a-cops, when I was security guard at Greenthrow, I always felt that my responsibility was 1,100 people, their safety. And it included laying down your life for the sheep. That's what you're there for. I mean, your priority was their care, not my wish. You know.
Right. But the good shepherd, if you follow him, he will protect you. A hired hand, when push comes to shove, will choose his own safety over the sheep, leaving the sheep, which is us, defenseless, to outside attacks. Let's read, and I'm going to jump ahead and we're run out of time here. The good shepherd, verse 14 through 18, he knows the sheep. I am the good shepherd. I know my own, and my own know me, just as the Father knows me, and I know the Father. And I lay down my life for the sheep, and I have other sheep that are not of this fold. Right? Now, that's pretty important for us in here, is it not? I must bring them also, and they will listen to my voice, so there will be how many flocks, class? One flock under how many shepherds? One. For this reason, the Father loves me, because I lay down my life that I may take it up again. No one takes it from me, but I lay it down of my own accord. I have authority to lay it down, and I have authority to take it up again. This charge I have received from my Father. Now, did they understand what he was saying? Spiritual information is spiritually discerned, is it not, class? Just because you occupy an office, let's just say a Pharisee, doesn't mean that you're spiritually in tune with our master. Correct? So therefore, verse 19, there was again a division among the Jews, because what? Because of these words. Many of them said, he has a demon and is insane. Why listen to him? It's amazing how that same, when you stand up and promote Christ, you will be torn down. They're trying to tear him down by just saying, hey, this guy's a crazy guy. Right? Others said, these are not the words of one who is oppressed by a demon. Can a demon open the eyes of the blind? Now, class, who is Jesus talking to? In there, specifically in verse 8. Again, he's talking to who? We just said earlier, the Jews, right?
They were talking to the Pharisees. The Pharisees were very arrogant people. They thought they had the law, and that the law they established was the law everyone should follow. And they thought they were the only ones. And Christ was making it clear here that he has other sheep too. In other words, you are not the only ones that I came for.
Yep. Absolutely correct.
Dan, in line with what Harold was saying there, earlier, Christ had a run-in at synagogue with people doing some bad business. So they had a grudge there against him. Also, they were deep into their, I call 3 R's, rules, regulations, and rituals.
Yeah.
And this man was violating their belief system that they developed.
That's right.
Yeah.
So they had a agenda. Absolutely.
Obviously, God the Father and God the Son know each other in the same fashion, right? Verse 15. But in verse 16, who are the other sheep here? Yes, that is right. Verse 16, the other sheep. And that's us. By the way, is anyone of Jewish heritage in here? I'm technically 1/16 Jewish. I don't know if you count that or not, but I don't know. Somewhere up the food chain, genealogical food chain, not a Jewish great-great-grandmother somewhere. Heartsaw. I know my dad could tell you exactly. But yeah, and the other sheep in class, and I have other sheep that are not of this fold. I must bring them also. And they will listen to my voice. So there will be what, class? One flock, one shepherd. Jesus is obedient to God the Father's plan. Praise the Lord. We're going to try to apply this to our life here. And I know I'm doing a lot of talking. I really want you guys to talk here. But let me ask you. I'm going to start out with the third one here. Are we following in all areas the Good Shepherd and or another false voice? Isn't that really what it comes down to, does it not? How good of a job are we doing? Are we searching the Scriptures to find out what God is revealing to us? And how good of a job are we doing at trying to apply it to our life? Because it's really revealing a heart attitude of what our heart is. Do we want to know what the Lord has revealed? And how are we doing in trying to apply it to our life? I'll say this. There are ebbs and flows in my life. Sometimes I think, a pretty good job, and other times I really stink. I do. I have a lot of me that I'm trying to suppress, my own wants and desires. So, you're like, how? I battle that on a daily basis. There's sometimes I don't feel like it. I don't want it. What about you?
I just know later on, God tells us that He gave us His complete Word so that our joy may be full. He wants our best interest in mind, but He tells us how to do it. But the world, you say, go for all the gusto you can get type thing,
Yeah.
to draw you away. But yeah, if we know the answer, it's there. If we want to understand true joy in our life,
Yeah.
it's not who's playing baseball this afternoon.
Yeah.
What's in God's Word? How should we live accordingly?
And this goes right along with the paths of our life. God is trying to reveal to us, just follow me and you will have an abundant life and enjoy your life. You'll have a life and you'll have it more abundantly. But how are we doing in that pursuit? Is that our goal? Is that our pursuit? It's not a rhetorical question. I'm actually asking you a question.
I think we have to continually discipline ourselves to do what we need to do instead of what we would really like to do.
Yep.
Let me ask you a question. What are some of these false voices that we're talking about here?
I'll say a false voice. To me, I see that as false teachers.
Well, that's true.
What I was trying to express there is, teachers with itching ears, so to speak, right? They craft an environment and a message to placate to people and to draw them in, frankly, not for the Lord's benefit, but for their own. Yeah?
Yeah, it's just in line with that, keep in mind the time in history when all this stuff was taking place, because they're suffering from what I call paradigm paralysis. They've lived all these years under Moses' law. Now here's Christ, who's the better way, and the Jewish leaders at that time, Pharisees, are out there falsely teaching Jewish law.
Look, I'll say that. David, go ahead.
I think we have a false voice we carry around with us wherever we go.
Yeah, we do.
And, like, you get a little temptation there, you got this false voice. As you yawn, that won't be so bad, you can do that, you can do this. Who's gonna know? That's the false voices that I struggle with.
Yep. Yep. Dennis.
You've talked about discipleship in the past. It still blows me that Jesus was vulnerable enough that He had 12 guys with Him for 3 years observing everything.
Yep.
How would we do if we had
is to try to cover up the reality of something dumb that you did. Right? And, you know, you talk about then being absolutely ineffective, you just lost it. You gotta be real with people.
Oh, even Paul had to die daily
Yeah.
to self, you know. Here's one of the greatest preachers ever lived, and he's still,
Yeah.
it's tougher daily.
But after Jesus died and rose from the dead, they were convinced, and they and others spread out throughout the world, but Jesus opened himself up.
That's right.
Consistent, everything he said, he did.
And folks, I tell you what, if we go out on our own, then we leave the sheepfold, we're gonna get eaten up. I mean, it happens. It's horrible. Praise the Lord that we have a good shepherd. And he wants to guide, lead us. And it's just, we need to submit to him and go into the sheepfold. Any other comments, questions, thoughts? Al, would you pray for us?
Sure. Father, we do thank you, Lord, for the time you give us together here today. We thank you for loving us and being our good shepherd. Father, I pray that you'll keep us in the sheepfold. I pray that you'll, through your word, provide some wisdom and discernment in our lives so that we don't fall prey to the